This is part 2 of the series, so if you haven't seen part 1, make sure to go back and watch it, and subscribe to see the full transformation. In this video, I start on the electrical system, and I do the fiberglass on the outside of the camper. Alright, I got my battery box here. It's going to go on the tongue. So I'm going to use this metal that I took off at the beginning to make a little mount and weld it onto the tongue right there. Alright, so I cut out this little plate, ground off the paint on the tongue. Got my little cheap Amazon stick welder. Just gonna weld it on from the bottom. Alright, we got it on. Let's just not look too closely at those welds. But it's strong. So now let's just hit it with some black paint. The electrical is actually pretty simple. You just take your positive wires and you cut them to length and strip the ends off. I think I'm going to change it and put some ring terminals on the end so I can remove them easier. But you just run each positive wire to each one of these positive terminals here that I'm doing. And then once you got all those in, you run your negative wires to the negative bus bar, which is this one right here. And then you just put your fuses in, the correct size fuse for each circuit, and you're all done. I'm using the lights I have to test my wires to make sure they're getting power. I have wires ran into the wall here that I did in the first video, and here I'm just drilling a hole and fishing the wires out for the USB charging port I'm going to put here. Connecting the USB charge port was really easy as well. I just crimped on a few of these little connectors that fit on the back of the charge port, and then you just plug it in, the positive and negative. The charge port was deeper than my wall is thick, so I had to add this little 3/4 inch block to space it out so that there was enough depth in the wall. Got all my supplies for fiberglass in. Got the 1708 biaxial fiberglass mat, and then some polyester laminating resin. And then I also got some other like chop strand mat, and then just all the supplies to mix it up and apply it. I've never done fiberglass before, so Wish me luck. I don't really know exactly what I'm doing. I watched a few YouTube videos, so hopefully I do it right.
You know who made it.
Make sure you just follow the instructions on the bottle of resin for the amount of hardener to add. So first I coat the wood with the resin and you let it dry for about 30 minutes to an hour until it gets tacky. And then you come back and you add more resin before you put the fiberglass on top, and then do another layer of resin on top of the fiberglass to soak it completely until it's translucent. It took a lot of resin to get it completely translucent, so I definitely have to order more to finish this. This process was very repetitive, so I'm not going to show the whole thing. I think you get the point. You cover the whole thing in fiberglass and put a bunch of resin all over it. Alright, got the last piece of 1708 matte put on. Looks pretty good. I forgot to mention earlier that once you put all the resin on the fiberglass, you take one of these little grooved rollers and you roll all the fiberglass to get all the bubbles out. Kind of an important step because on the sides, you can't really see it, but there's some bubbles because I didn't roll it good enough. Because I bought this little pack of rollers that came with like a bigger one and then the smaller one, and I used the big one on the first piece I did and it worked really good, but then I didn't clean it after I was done, and the resin hardened in all the grooves, so I couldn't use it anymore. And then I started the sides and I was trying to use this little one and it wasn't working very good, and just lesson learned, because some bubbles are still on the sides. Of course, the most seen part of it has bubbles, but it is what it is. Live and learn. So now that the 1708 is all put on, I'm gonna move on to the chop strand mat, and you cover the whole thing with that as a final layer. So I'm gonna get started on that now. You want to be sure to sand in between each coat to make sure the next coat bonds to the previous one. All right, and the fiberglass is all finished. Came out pretty good. Got it all sanded down. The fiberglass turned out really nice, I think. The corners worked out pretty good, or the edges without rounding them over. They don't look too bad. Got my wires sticking out, all fiberglassed in. Next I'm gonna install these little threaded inserts. You just drill a hole and then screw them down into the hole. I'll probably glue them in with some epoxy. But I'm just gonna put those all over the bottom of the trailer so that I can attach it to the trailer. So I'm just gonna measure where the threaded inserts need to go so that they line up with the trailer itself, and then mark out where I need to drill on the bottom of the camper. All right, I marked out all the holes I'm gonna drill. I got this little drill guide to make sure I drill at a 90-degree angle. Got the tape on the bit so I don't go too deep. Now I'm just gonna start drilling. All right, now I'm gonna take the threaded inserts and put some 2-part epoxy on them and then screw them down into the hole with the Allen wrench. All right, I got all the threaded inserts installed. Ended up putting 18 of them all around the edges. Well, the front and back edge, and then they all go into studs that are running across the floor. I'm gonna use these 3/8, I think, bolts to bolt it from underneath the trailer. And there's gonna be these little bushings in between, like that. So I think that should be strong enough to hold it down to the trailer. I marked all the spots on the trailer that I need to drill holes, and I'm gonna drill the holes out. So I got these trailer stabilizer jacks. I'm gonna mount them. I got 2 of them. I'm gonna mount them up underneath the trailer on each corner so that they can stabilize these front corners. I took this plate from the metal that I took off at the beginning. I'm just gonna weld it right here, and then that'll be a good spot to mount the jack to. So I just gotta get my welder out and weld this plate on. I already ground the paint off where the welds are gonna go.
installed. Welds aren't pretty, but they're strong. That's all that matters. So now I'm just gonna clean them up. Just gonna clean them up with some mineral spirits and then spray them with some black spray paint. All right, I think I'm gonna call it here for this video. Make sure to stay tuned and subscribe for part 3, where I install the door, window, and roof vent, and probably complete this thing. Thanks for watching, and see you in part 3.